Whoa, good evening, everybody. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
And I'm Rich Carlson. We're not normally that big.
No, not normally that big, and we're live this evening. So good evening, everybody. We have a good show in store for everybody. We're talking about the Sentinel software. So this is something that, we've gotten a lot of questions and comments about, kind of an overview of the Sentinel software. So we're going to give you basically a great overview of the Sentinel software, some tips and tricks. So it should be a good show. We see that there's tons of comments just flooded in. Yeah. The second that we went live. Good evening to every one of you. So I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
I forgot to do our normal intro spiel. So yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy last 24 hours with the big thing that's on TV. So I'm happy that
some kind of voting thing or something going on here.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm happy that everybody is taking a break from the news channels and being able to join us. We're not going to talk about that big thing that's going on. We're going to talk about Sentinel software. So that's going to be a good time for us this evening. So really looking forward to this show. So let's put up that the topic of discussion tonight is the overview of Sentinel software. And as always, the Scanner Guys is brought to you by Scanner Master. So let's talk about a couple of things before we dive into that. We do have email blasts going out almost each and every week until Christmas. So definitely subscribe to the Scanner Master newsletter. Good stuff going to be going in there. Some sales and products you should check out and all that. So that should be really exciting there. So make sure you sign up at scannermaster.com. We're always looking for your stupid scanner tricks and your shack photos. This is definitely something that we would love to see you send in to us. You can email it directly to thescannerguys@gmail.com, thescannerguys@gmail.com. We would love to see all those stupid scanner tricks and those shack photos. Now, stupid scanner tricks is not stupid things. It's really a play on words. It's things that you came up with that are really smart for tricks with your scanners.
Yeah, and things like one that Jonathan and I came up with a while back is the base from a home patrol scanner. And if you're not using it, you flip it upside down, and it makes a great base for like a 996 or a BCT-15 to angle it up at you. Things like that, the things that you wouldn't normally think of, outside the box type of hints and tricks.
I remember, when I was messing around with that, I was looking to shoot a video with the HP2, not the HP2, the PSR, not PSR. Sorry, my brain's a little mush. Yeah. So it was the SDS200. Sorry, SDS200. So I was trying to shoot a video with that, and I was, if you have it flat on the desk, it's hard to shoot a camera with on a tripod. Yeah. I want it angled so you could see me press the buttons. So I put the SDS200 on there, and it was like, oh, this is great. And, it angles it up. And then I ended up doing that with the SDS that I had at my desk in the office. I said, this is so good. I can put my SDS on there, and then I can angle it up towards me so I can see that display really nice. It works really well. And I
real quick, did you see Evan's comment?
Yeah, look at that. The antenna's in stock. That is awesome. So make sure you order it, because as Rich mentioned during the Train Aficionado show, Scanner Master will get products in, and we're still dealing with a little bit of sluggishness with getting production from these various factories. So we're getting some of these parts in drips and drabs. So it's on a steady flow. So definitely place that order right away to be able to get that.
Yeah, I wanted to get that in there before we forgot about it. But yeah, that is a great antenna. It works really well for VHF and especially for railroads. So, if you want one of those VHF BNC antennas, that's the antenna that's going to work really well.
Yeah, and I have right here on my 125 AT, I have it right here. Yep. It works great. I am so pleased with that antenna. I've been out rail fanning, and my scanner's picking up, and then I see another person with a scanner, but they have a regular rubber duck, and they're not getting the distance because the rubber duck is just an all-band antenna. This antenna is tuned to that particular band, and it works really, really well. So absolutely. I'm so happy, Evan, that you were able to get that. You'll be quite impressed with it. So let me I think we got a couple more slides here, so let's take a look at it. This one's a real good one, Rich. You mentioned we were talking about this. This is a good scanner hand of the week. So Rich, tell us a little bit about it.
All right, so if you use AA batteries in your scanner, especially alkaline batteries, and if you're not going to use the scanner for a while, pop the batteries out of the scanner, because alkaline batteries especially, they can leak. And when they do, you're going to get this white, chalky, caustic substance inside your radio. And if you catch it early enough, you can usually just wipe it out and clean it out, and it'll be fine. Or use one of those canned airs and help blow that stuff out. But it's acid, basically, and it can eat into the plastic and do damage to your radio. It can also degrade the metal connections for the battery. So if you're not going to use the radio for a long time, take the batteries out of the radio and store them separately. I have a box in my garage for batteries that I've used but not used up for that thing, and I keep them in there out of the radios, and I can grab them if I need it just for a couple hours. I'll grab one of those. Batteries are cheap enough where you can do that these days, but the radios are expensive. Don't ruin your $500 radio with cheap batteries that have leaked out on you.
Yeah, and just as a great tip for scanners, but that's pretty much any electronic device. Yeah. That you do have batteries in it, and you're gonna let it sit for a while. Take those batteries out. Like Rich said, batteries are cheap. Your electronic device is not. So take the extra precaution and do that, and you're not gonna have to deal with that issue at all.
If you're gonna be practicing safe stuff, practice safe scanners. Take the batteries out.
That's for sure. Great tip of the week there. So we're going to look at the Sentinel software. The Sentinel software is very similar. The only difference is there's two different versions just because of how the radios are laid out. The Home Patrol 1 and 2 are slightly different from all the other Uniden database scanners. So they have their own software. The way you're able to tell is it's got that brown gold type of shield color. It looks like an orange brown color. That's going to be
maybe
bronze. Yeah. So that's for your Home Patrol 1 and 2. So the green shield is everything else: 436, 536, SDS 100, and 200. Tonight I'm going to be using the Sentinel software for the X390 36 Sentinel. So it's going to cover all those other radios. They're exactly the same. The only difference is they work, all this works for all these radios, and the other one works for the Home Patrol, but the layout of the software is exactly the same. So let me switch over to this other computer so we can show that. I apologize. I'm not going to be looking at camera because I'm going to be on a different computer. So
and while he's doing that, if you're looking for downloads for these software packages, you can go to the product page for the individual scanners at scannermaster.com and click on the 436 product page or the SDS product page. And if you go down below where it says add to cart, there's going to be a YouTube video with our buddy Jonathan on it. And right above that, you're going to see the link to download the software. So that's the easiest way to find that download link for these software.
It certainly is. And as you can see on your screen right now, we have the Sentinel software. As soon as it loads, it'll show United States and Canada. So it's what we call basically a root tree. So it keeps opening out. Let me just show you what that kind of looks like. I'm going to open up the United States branch, and then it's going to branch off and show all the states. And then if I go to Delaware, for example, it'll break out to the county level. And within the county level, you will see nationwide, statewide, and then county systems. Yep. So every one of these are going to branch out, going to look very similar. Of course, nationwide is going to be all your nationwide stuff. Statewide is going to be things that are pertaining to Delaware, that's statewide. And of course, county level is going to be anything that's pertaining to the county. What I recommend is before you do any of this work, do your research on RadioReference. Yeah. You want to be able to see what systems you're looking to program in your scanner and where they are located. If they're a state level type of system, you're going to go into the state level branch. If they're a trunking system or a system that's local to the county, you're more than likely going to go into the county aspect of things. So I can't stress that enough. Every time that I talk to people that do programming with the Sentinel software, I tell them, first thing, do your homework on RadioReference, because this is where this database originates from RadioReference. So it's going to have the same exact layout. And this looks really nice here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just open up the local branch, and you can see I'm pointing at the screen, which you can't see me doing that.
Yeah, and within the county systems, you're going to see the cities and stuff that are within that county.
And you can see all that right on the screen right now. But before we do any of this, we need to update the internal database. And you can see here the last time that I updated the database was a while ago. So 9/27 of 2020. And where we see that is in the bottom left of the screen, as you can see there.
Right where I'm pointing.
Yeah. Bottom left. So what I'm going to do is the first thing we're going to do is make sure that you're on a computer that has internet access, because you're going to be able to ping the servers over at Uniden, and it's going to grab the latest database. So let's do that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Update, and then you can see Update Master Database. So we're going to do that. And then it's going to check the server, as you can see on your screen right now.
And of course, with all the video going back and forth, it's going to be a little bit slower tonight, but obviously it'll be a lot faster. And it depends on how fast your internet connection is. Even if you got a relatively slow broadband, it shouldn't take more than 15, 20, 30 seconds.
Looks like it's moving pretty quick.
Yeah.
With everything that's going on, I mean, we're running, we're streaming that screen. It's going out to the main broadcast studio here, and then it's so yeah. Well, knock on wood.
You'll know how fast your internet connection is. Basically, what you're doing is you're downloading about a quarter gigabyte of data when you update the database. It's about 250K usually. Could be a little bit higher or lower. And it's basically replacing the database that's on your computer with the database that's on their servers. Uniden updates those servers almost every week on Sunday, sometime on Sunday. So if you're one of those people who want to update your database every week, do it late Sunday night or sometime on Monday, and you'll get the most current data. Because the stuff you download on Wednesday is going to be the same stuff you would have downloaded on Monday.
Yeah, watch closely. Once this bar goes all the way across, you're going to see that date on the bottom left, update. So, of course, this is a little bit slow because we are, we're streaming this computer, and this is an older laptop that I'm using. So it's not the fastest, but it'll be able to do the job what we need to do.
And you don't need the latest, greatest Windows machine in order to do this. If you've got an old Windows XP or Windows 7, Windows 8 laptop, even an older laptop with Windows 10, it doesn't have to be the latest, greatest, fastest. You need internet access, and you need a USB port or a card reader.
Yeah.
And you can do everything that we're doing now. You can do it directly into the scanner with the USB cable, or you can do it with an SD card reader, either plugged into a USB port, or if you've got one, right on the computer.
Yeah, definitely. And this, of course, is taking a little bit longer just because of the age of this computer. But the thing is, I've been using my Mac strictly right now. So, of course, I've kept this around because I don't have any parallels or anything like that. So this serves the purpose. This is the ideal situation. Usually it's a lot faster than this because I'm not streaming. Right. I'm not streaming this out to an audience usually when I'm doing this. So but that usually takes a few minutes. Let me
and if you've got a Mac, you can still do this on a Mac if you're running Parallels or Boot Camp or Fusion. But one way or another, you got to be running Windows in order to do this. So it's almost done. Now it's reconstructing. So it's basically deleting the old database and replacing it with the new database. And it should be done in a couple seconds here.
Yes. We're waiting patiently.
Yeah. Of course, now that you're watching it, it's going to take forever. What do they say? A watch pot never boils? Or
yes, I noticed that. If you're standing there by the stove and waiting for the water to boil, it'll never boil. The thing,
you take your dog out to do his business when it's raining, it's gonna take forever.
Yeah, and looks like I just lost connection with this. So hold on one second.
All right. Yeah. Well, so while he's doing that, on the same menu, there is an update firmware as well. Those firmware updates are done on a much less frequently. They are done much less frequently, or on a much less frequent basis than the the database updates. Database updates are every week. Firmware updates are done as needed.
Yeah, I'm not too sure why the connection. Let's see here. It's just.
While you're doing that, there's a couple questions that pertain to this. Ira asks, says he's using Sentinel to update the database on both his SDSs. When he's writing it, the box appears to say that there's a system different on a unit, and then there's a couple options. You can copy and replace it on the scanner, copy with the new name, or skip it. And Joe has some good responses to that. Basically, it's read it what you want it to do. You can read. It's basically telling you that one version is different than the other. So if you've made some changes on your radio, then you want to retain the radio version. If you've not made changes on the radio, then you want to retain the version on the computer. So you're going to replace it.
All right. Well, we'll hop right back in this because it's working right now. And
cool.
So we're going to hit OK here. And then we're going to see this spin around for a second. And then it should update the database date, which it just did. So it was last Sunday, which was Sunday, November 1st, as you can see down the bottom. Okay, so this is all set. So let's give some other things that you can do with the Sentinel software. As you can see here, I have a whole bunch of favorites lists listed here. Favorites lists are very easy to create. So what we can do is I'll go back to my old stomping grounds in Massachusetts. And I lived almost 2 years ago. I lived in Attleboro, Massachusetts. So that's in Bristol County. So I'm going to create a favorites list for you so you can actually see what this looks like. And I'm going to widen this screen out so we can see it like that. And what we're going to do is click on county, and then we'll click on Bristol. Now you'll see here all the municipalities here are in alphabetical order. So Attleboro. So I can either just right click on this and append this to a favorites list, or I can be very choosy and do this. So what I would do is just say control and highlight, just police and fire, and maybe highlight the public works. Maybe that's all I want. So what I'll do is I'll right click that, hit append to favorites list. And then what it'll do is it's going to come up with a dialog box. I'm then going to create a new favorites list. And then this box will come up. I'm going to call it Attleboro. Attleboro. There we go. And I'm going to hit OK. And then what it's going to do is once that's done, there's a little bit of lag here. So what you'll see down here is Attleboro, Bristol County, and then you'll see municipalities, and then you'll see just those channels. And what I basically did was highlight them and use the shift key to select, not shift, the control key on a Windows machine, and that allowed me to highlight particular ones. So let's do a trunking system as well.
Yeah, because trunking does work a little bit differently when you're doing this.
Okay, so
especially if you got a wide area trunking system.
So what we're going to do is we want to be able to monitor the Mass State Police. So I know that's a statewide system, so I'm going to hit the branch here, open that up, and as of right now, as far as I know, this part of the state's still on the old Motorola system. So I'm going to click on this, open that up, and I know it's H Patrol, which is H Troop. I'm going to click on that. And all I want is, let's say I want this. I'm going to do the control button, and I'm going to click on statewide. So I got that as well. So let's say I want the statewide talk groups, and I want all the H Troop talk groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit append to favorites list. I'm going to look for Attleboro. I'm going to click on that, hit OK. Now look what it did here. You can see that it brought in every single tower. But what I may want to do is run a scanner at the house. So I don't need all these towers, and it'll increase my scanning speed. If I'm using this scanner in my car or truck, I may want to leave all the towers. So when I'm traveling, I'll pick up some of the neighboring towers. But for this instance, I'm going to be using the scanner at my home, so I want to eliminate towers. I want to make the scanning speed go as fast as possible because it's going to keep checking each one of these sites to see if there's any signal. So there's an easy way of doing this. So I'm going to click on over here, do a Control A, which is going to highlight everything on the screen over there. Now we know that I want so I'm going to use our Control key again. And I know I want the statewide talk groups, and I also want the H Patrol talk groups. But I don't want all these sites. So I've done some research on RadioReference. And the system that I want, the tower is called Bristol and Plymouth counties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhighlight that. So now everything in the blue that you see there, I'm going to remove it from this favorites list. So I'm then going to right-click on it, remove from favorites list. And then it's going to ask me, do you really want to do this? And I'm going to hit OK. And look at that. Now I have basically the talk groups that I want and also the site that I want. Now let's say I want to weed out some of these talk groups for the H Patrol. I want to weed out some of this. So let's say I know that H Patrol 2, which is the south, is what I want to normally listen to. And I don't want to hear everything that's going on in the north because that's Boston and all that stuff. So I can also go into here, click on that. Let's say I don't want to hear the tunnel dispatch. Well, I would hit my control button again, highlight that. I don't want to hear the HOV lane in Boston, so I can click on that. And then that seems to be good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, yet again, right-click, remove from favorites list, hit OK. And that gets rid of all those other talk groups that I wasn't interested in listening to. So that kind of weeds it down. So we basically made a favorites list that includes both conventional channels and trunking. Now there's another level to this, which is really cool. And a lot of people don't realize that the Sentinel software does this. So what I can do is I can click on the favorites list name, right-click on that, program favorites list. Now this I use all the time because it allows me to change alpha tags. It allows me to add stuff in that's not listed on RadioReference. I love this about the Sentinel software.
Yeah.
So I can go in here. You see how this a name for Mass State Police. So I can go in. Oops. There we go. So let's say I want to just change this and abbreviate the name here. So what I can do is I can clean this up a bit. This is a talk group, like a not a talk group, but I can clean
department name. Yeah.
Department name. So what I can do is I can do MSP H Troop. So kind of clean that up, and then what I can do is I can clean this up and make this MSP statewide. So I can kind of clean this up a little bit so it looks a little bit cleaner.
And when it shows up on the radio, you'll be able to see all of it because the radios are limited to a certain number of characters, whereas the channel name might be too long to fit on the screen of your scanner.
So you can see here that I have everything here, and I'm pretty pleased with everything that's here. The other thing that you can do on this screen is you can do, where is it? Let me just scroll over. Hold on a second. There we go. I can do some lighting changes over here.
Yep.
So we can turn on, for this particular channel, since this is the all call, I can make this blue, and I can make this a fast blink and hit OK. So we're able to set light alerts, and we're also able to set tone alerts over here as well.
And those light alerts are for the alert light on the radio. So depending on the scanner that you have that's on the 436, it's going to be just on the upper left corner of the speaker. On the SDS, it's going to be above the display on the SDS 100. And on the mobile radios, it's going to be behind the, on the 536, it's going to be the light behind the large silver knob.
Yeah, so you can definitely do that, and you can do the color coding right here in the Sentinel software. Now, another thing I want to show you, I want to clean up this here, the department name, and I want to just make this Attleboro. So it's very simple. I just go into here. Typically it'll be channels, so you go over to options, and then clean that up, make it just Attleboro. And then the other thing too, we can go back to the channels. Let's say I had a frequency that wasn't listed on RadioReference. So what I could do is hit the plus sign here. I'm just going to make something up. Joe's Taxi.
Yeah. Or super secret TAC channel.
Yeah. So 3.1. And it's a low band channel. So we're going to do this. And we know that it's going to, we know the PL tone. So we're going to do analog, and we'll put in a PL tone. Hit OK. Now, this is a key thing you want to make sure you do, is you want to make sure that you assign a service type, because if you don't have custom 1 on, which it defaults to anytime that you add a channel in, it's not going to come up when it's scanning. So we're going to make this a business channel. So we'll click here.
And on the field before that, on the audio option, the PL tone, if you don't know what the PL tone is, leave it at search, which what that will do is it will allow you to hear the channel no matter what PL tone they're using, and it will then if you know that it's an analog channel. So leave it as analog, and then leave the CTCSS or the PL as search, and that's the very first option, and it will display what the tone or code is when that channel becomes active. If you have a PL tone listed in there, you will only hear that channel when that particular tone is being transmitted. So if there's Joe's Taxi on there and Bill's Pizza Delivery on there, and they have 2 different PL tones, you would only hear the Joe's Taxi because you've got their PL tone. If you put it on search, you'll hear them both, and it'll display which PL tone it is.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it to the PL tone, whatever I had it before. I was just making this up, so we'll hit OK. If it was digital, We could do the same thing on the digital side. You would do digital code search.
Yep.
If you knew any of the other information, the NAT code, the DMR color, or any of the other NXDN information, you could put it into the fields here. But
and
let's
that's
say,
assuming that you have DMR and NXDN installed on your radio too.
Exactly. Yeah. If you don't have DMR and NextEdge programmed into your radio, you can program this in. It's not going to pick it up unless you have the paid upgrade.
Right.
So let me go back over to analog here, hit OK, and that's all set. Yet again, scrolling over, you'll be able to see, you know, alert, tone, light alert. And the other thing, let's say Bill's Taxi or Joe's Taxi, whatever I named it, their audio was extremely low. So you can be able to do the channel, the volume offset, where you can either bump it down up to 3 notches or bump it up 3 notches if it's extremely low. Let's say it's a little low, so I'm going to do a +1 on that. So then once you're done in this edit screen, this is a dialog box over the Sentinel software. So what you want to do is you want to hit the, once you're done, hit the X. It's going to ask you if you want to save it. Make sure you hit yes, because all the work you've done, if you don't hit yes, it's going to go away. So I'm just going to hit the yes button right now. And then you're going to see magically on the screen, all that the department names are going to change. It may take a second. And let me just open the root tree for Attleboro. And you'll be able to see, look, I made the MSP statewide, MSP H-Troop. Those changes are reflected in the software now.
Right. Now, remember this, when you are working with favorites lists, and this has come up in the comments as well, you just beat us to it, guys. When you update the full database, it does not update the favorites lists automatically. So now if you go from the full database and you append it to a favorites list, it will then update that favorites list with whatever's in the database. But if you do not go into append, it will not change the stuff that's in your favorites lists automatically. So if you've got a lot of stuff that you've created and done your own stuff, and you've got channels that for whatever reason you don't want to put in the radio reference database, it will not erase those unless you actually append into it. And like Joe said too, it will re-add all those towers you deleted if you append the favorites list. If you don't go back in and append from the full database into the favorites list, it will not add those extra all those other towers that you deleted.
And the other thing too, if you decide to change, you know, the names of the various things on this, on here, let's say I change this to be, you know, state police rather than Mass State Police, it may create a whole different file in there because it's trying to find a matching thing when it's appending it. So
yeah, because you changed the name, so it, so now you'll have another favorites in there.
Yeah, another favorite under that same favorites list. It'll be, you know, state police, or it'll show Massachusetts State Police. So you have to remember some of the things that you do. A lot of times when there's a lot of changes in the database, especially with the trunk system, what I'll do is I'll create a brand new favorites list. As you've seen right there, it only takes a few minutes to create a favorites list. You can pretty much crank it out pretty quickly. So if you know there's a lot of changes, a lot of times what I'll do, you see all my favorites lists, I'll rebuild these. Every so often I'll delete the favorites list out and I'll create a brand new favorites list. And you can see that I have, this one's a big one that I put together. You know, some of the trunk systems that are around me. And I call it GPS NC. This is basically the file that's in the truck in a 536. So I use this and works great. One thing I did a lot of customization on was on the Charlotte trunk system. This favorites list I probably will keep. Where is it? So what I did, so in RadioReference, they have all of the Charlotte police all grouped together is under one department header. So what I did is I created a department header for each area in Charlotte, And then I created, on top of that, I put latitude, longitude for the center of that area. So when the GPS, when I'm traveling through the city, I'm only going to be able to hear Hickory Grove when I'm in Hickory Grove, or Steel Creek when I'm in Steel Creek, or University when I'm in University.
You can customize all that, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and that's what I did here with it. So if I click on University, you're going to see all the talk groups that pertain to the University section of Charlotte for the police there. Yeah. And this was something that I worked on. So this will be one that I'm not going to delete, because trust me, it took me a little while, because I had to look up the center point of each one of these districts and then put in a latitude, longitude, and then a radius. Yeah,
so you can use the GPS feature in your Uniden scanner, even on your favorites lists, if you go in and set location control on the system options. So basically, you can do pretty much anything you want to with these things.
Yeah, and that's how I use the GPS with favorites lists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up another dialog box. This dialog box is, I should be explaining this when I'm clicking it. Let me do that again. So we're going to do edit, edit profile. The software is usually a little bit faster because we're streaming this. It's a little bit slower. So you can see all my favorites list here. So what I'm going to do is, normally what I do is, if I'm only wanting to send 1 or 2 favorites lists to the radio, I'll click on the first one, hit Control, hit A. First thing I'll do is, if I don't want to send some of these favorites lists to the radio, I'll do off to monitor, and then I'll do download, I'll do off as well. So everything's defaulted to be off. So what I will then do is, let's say I want to put in, let's see here. I want to put in the GPS one and the Attleboro one into my radio, just these 2 favorites lists. So what I'll do is the control button, and then I'll click on the Attleboro, and you can see that both of them are lit up. So let's say I want to download them. So I'll hit the on button, and you'll see that on for download will be there. And then I want to monitor them both. So I'll hit the on button there, and it'll turn both of them on there. So when I go to write this to the radio, it'll then write just these favorites lists. If I wanted to write all the favorites lists, I would just do the Control A and then do monitor on or download on, or I could just do monitor on onto the one favorites list and then just store the other ones on the radio.
Yeah. And you can also use the Sentinel software to assign quick keys. And if you're a quick key type person, they can be very helpful. But using GPS or location controls, what they officially call it, to turn these things on and off means you don't have to press any buttons. As you drive, it automatically turns this stuff on. And by using this profile updates, you're telling the radio which ones you're going to send and which ones you're going to ignore.
Yeah, so let me continue on with some of the great stuff that's under this profile options. So we're in the scan selection tab. Mm-hmm. The next tab over is the service types. Now this is where, if you were using the full database or you were using a favorites list, you can kind of control things that are on and off in that particular favorites list. Now you remember I did put in Joe's Taxi, which I assigned it as a business. So right now I don't have business checked off here on the list. So if I want to be able to monitor that particular business that's in my favorites list, I would have to check it off. But let's say there was business channels that I have in my favorites list. I didn't go through and weed them out. So what I want to do is make sure that box is unchecked, so I'm not scanning any of that stuff. Especially if you're using the full database, when you're traveling, you don't want businesses coming up, security, schools, and all that other stuff, because your scanner is going to be bogged down all the time with every single business that's along the route. So as you can see here, I have a lot of the EMS channels, the fire, the law enforcement, the multi-tac, and public works, and of course, my favorite, railroads. Make sure that's checked off. So
now, the other thing is with and almost all of these things, you can turn those on and off on the radio itself. So if you normally are going to be listening to railroads and aircraft and such, but you don't want to at a particular time, you can change that on the radio. But this is what it's going to be set at when you write it to the radio from the computer.
Yes. All right. So let me close out of this right now. Those are the basics that you really want to look at. So I'm going to hit the X there. So it's pretty straightforward with that. I mean, there's a lot more to the software, but I'm just trying to give everybody an overview. So we get a basic understanding of it. So what I'll do too is we can look at doing a firmware update. So what I'm going to do is I have the SDS here. Let me just see if I turn. You might be able to see it on the camera. So let me just do this. I'm going to widen this out. So we have here, I have my SDS here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power it on. I already have it connected up to the computer already. So the last time
while you're working on that, there's one more thing that I want to remind people of.
I'm going to tell people how to do this. So,
okay, go ahead.
So basically I want mass storage. So I'm going to hit the E button.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in mass storage. So it'll show right on the screen, mass storage. So now what we want to do is we want to update firmware. So let me widen out this shot again. And we will click on update firmware. As you can see, the serial number of my radio is on the screen now. So then I would hit OK, because that's the radio I want to connect to. So what it's going to do is going to check the unit and server and see if there's a newer firmware update available. And looks like I'm using the current version, so I'm all set there. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do, now you remember that I went over to the edit button and the profile. So I'm just going to click on this again, just to show now that I'm ready to download to the radio the new favorites list. So we just want to confirm the favorites list I want to send is Attleboro. And I want to send this one that's GPS NC. And I want both of them to be on and monitored. So I'm just making sure everything else is off so I don't send that. So what we want to do is we want to click on Scanner. And then we want to write to Scanner. And of course, like if I wanted to erase any of the favorites lists on the scanner, I would hit the checkbox here. And of course, I want to force full database rewrite. So I'll click on that. Make sure up here that it's connected up to the STS. But before I do this, I actually skipped a step. So I'm going to hit cancel here. And I need to do one extra step. So I have, oops, of course, this is going to come up. Hold on one second. There we go.
Software updates always come up when you're doing stuff like this.
Close program. And of course, it's not responding. Okay.
Love Windows.
Okay, so what I need to do is on this software, this is, remember, we're using the software that's for the 396, the 436, excuse me, the
436 and 536.
436, 536, Home Patrol 1. And that, oh, God. I didn't get enough sleep last night. So the 436, 536, and the SDS 100 and 200. So what you need to do is set the target model. So you see down on the bottom where it shows the date where my cursor is. It's towards the 436 or 536. So we need to point this towards an SDS. So I'm going to go over to Tools, Target Model, SDS 100. Now we've already have the radio connected and it's already in USB mass storage. So that's good. So now you can see down the bottom that the target model SDS 100 is there.
Yep.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Scanner, right to Scanner. I see there that it's the SDS, and I'm going to hit Force Write Full Database, and then I'm going to hit OK. And then what's going to happen here, it's going to not only add my favorites list to the scanner, it's also going to update the internal database. So you need to do this, even though that maybe I wasn't going to install any favorites list to the scanner, but I wanted to put in the latest database. You need to write it to the radio in order for it to work. Because you update it in the software doesn't mean it's going to magically get to the radio.
And that is the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is they call on the phone, hey, I'm not picking up Mayberry Police. And I said, well, yeah, they're on this new trunking system. When's the last time you updated your database? So I did that just this morning. I said, did you write it to the radio? Oh, yeah. So we walk them through checking the database version date, and nope, it's still the old database because they forgot this step, writing it to the scanner. So that's probably the number one mistake. The number one mistake people make when they're trying to make updates to the radio, and they don't especially when they're doing the full database, because you don't think about that.
Yeah, you certainly don't. This software, it works pretty well. It was well thought out by Uniden. Sorry that it's. Typically when I do these videos, it's kind of not live, so I can kind of pace myself. So,
if you make a mistake, you can go back and do a new reshoot.
Reshoot it. So, and plus, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so I'm a little bit tired. So, as we see here, it prompts you finished writing to scanner. So we can just hit the OK button here, and then you're all set. So what you would want to do. I actually programmed this radio without the batteries in it, so it's being powered by the computer.
Yeah.
So in case you're doing this the same way I'm doing it, you don't want to just unplug this. You want to make sure that you properly shut down the radio just by hitting the power button.
Right.
And then the radio will completely shut down. And then you can unplug it. With
any of the zip code scanners, please make sure that you power the radio off properly. That will help prevent the SD cards from getting corrupted. The other thing you could do too, we've talked about this before, is if you have a zip code radio and you don't use the recording or the replay option, turn those off, and that will reduce dramatically the amount of writes to and from the card, and also reduce dramatically the possibility of getting your card corrupted.
Yeah, and the other thing that you may want to keep in mind, you don't need to connect your physical radio to the computer. So I just popped out on one of my radios that are in front of me, a 536. I popped out the SD card. So what I can do is use one of those SD card readers. You can purchase these relatively cheap. If your computer doesn't have a mini slot, you can get one of these, plug it into there. It will show up the same exact way. It'll show the radio serial number in there. If it's a SD card that's already used, you just plug it into there. You would do everything the exact same way that I did it. And then what you do is take your SD card out, eject it, then bring it over to the scanner. Or if you got it in the vehicle, go out to the car, pop the SD card in. And, as Rich and I always say, is
keep a spare.
Keep a spare. So you've done all this work right now. So what you can do, grab your spare, like Rich is showing you. So I just updated the database. I added some additional favorites. So guess what? Get your spare, do the same thing. Plug it in, save it, and then you get the peace of mind.
And the other thing, there's two things to remember here too, is number one, when you're using the SD card reader, it's almost always much faster to read and write the card from an SD card reader than it is while you're doing it in the radio. So you save yourself a few seconds of computer read-write time. It might take you, twice as long to take the card out of the radio, especially on a handheld, but you can do that. And the other thing to remember is when you update, if you do have a firmware update, so if Jonathan had gotten a firmware update, when you either unplug the USB cable or you turn the radio on the next time, that's when that firmware update will load into the radio. Let the radio go and let the radio do the updates. Don't turn the radio off. Don't pull the battery out. Don't pull the power cord out or anything like that until that firmware update is done. And then the radio will start scanning. Then you can do whatever you want to it.
That's for sure.
Now, when you buy the SD card updates from us, it's just like we had your radio plugged into a USB cable, and then we send you the SD card to you in the mail. You pop it in the radio, and it'll do that. It'll update the firmware, update the database, and update your favorites list.
Yeah, so that's the great thing about when you purchase that from us, you're able to do that. And keep in mind, Kevin made a good comment there about micro SD cards. They're small. Yeah. You want to be gentle with popping it in and out of your radio, also putting in the SD card reader. And you want to make sure that you're storing these SD cards, these extra SD cards, in a good spot. Like Rich, he's got the best thing for the portable, taping it inside. It's protected from the weather. It's protected from getting damaged. It's right there inside the case. You want to make sure that it's protected as well. You don't want to just throw this in the glove box. You could get it damaged, or you could get
and you're
dirt.
Gonna lose it.
Yeah, you're going to lose it.
So what I do in the car is I have my micro SD card in one of those full-size SD card adapters, and then I have that in a little plastic box that has a little piece of foam in there, so it's not rattling around. And then I leave that in my glove box, and so that way the card itself is protected.
Yeah, another thing that that a lot of people don't realize. So I created that favorites list that shows Attleboro. Let's say I want to change it. Now, what I could do is just click here, and right up here you'll see this AE icon. Click on that, and you can change the name of the favorites list. So I could do Southeastern Mass. So I could do that, hit OK, and watch this. It's going to change the name of the favorites list. Another cool trick. Now, believe it or not, you can make another copy of a favorites list. Check this out. So I'm going to do right-click on GPS favorites list. I'm going to do actually, wait a minute. It's within the favorites list. So let's say I wanted to do. Let's use the example. Remember, I did all that work on that trunk system for Charlotte. So let's say I wanted to break this out into somewhere else. So I can either do one or two things. I can right-click here, append to favorites list, and do that whole trunk system as its own thing. Or I can go here. Let me just hit cancel. So let's take a look at this. So I have all this I've worked my butt off doing. So what we can do is just click on all of these, hit append to favorites list, create a new list, and call it let's see, police. Hit OK, and look at that. I made a favorites list from a favorites list. Now so this allows me to kind of break things out to its own thing. So let's say I did all this work with this, but I wanted to reset up the radio so it's its own entity or its own favorites list, so it's broken out on its own, and that's how I did it. And so you can do that with the software, and you can see here it also pulled in all the sites. As you can see down below, it shows all the Charlotte stuff. I did see there's one error there. I can see a couple errors on there, typing errors that I can see with the CHL. Where is it? This one right here. But I can easily fix that. Remember, we showed you how to do that. Go to the favorites list name.
Yeah.
Go to program favorites list. Then the dialog box is going to pop up. I'm going to click here. Find the one that's got the mistake. Go over to options and change this to like that. And then what I can do is just click out of that. And then you'll see it update. Everything will be all the same. And then I'll just click on this box. Of course, it's going to ask us again to save it, which I'm going to do right now and hit yes. And then voila, we fixed that.
Yeah.
So that's all set.
So now, you and I are kind of outliers, but there's a lot of people who have 2 or 3 compatible radios that they might be doing this on. And another question we get asked all the time is, all right, I've got a handheld and a mobile, or a 536 and an SDS or something like that. And can I use the same installation for all these radios? And like you showed before, you can change your target model. And since all the four scanners, the 436, 536, and the two SDSs use the same file format for the favorites lists, you can put all the favorites lists on all the radios. I suggest that instead of trying to decide which favorites list to send to what radio, is send all the favorites lists. They don't take up any room. Send all the favorites lists to all your radios, and then that way you can change things around. If you got two radios in your car and you use one for railroads and one for other stuff, and then you got something held on one of the radios, you can go and put those other things back in the second radio.
All right, brought up a point. I want to show you guys another thing that we can do with this radio as well. I'm going to go back into the profile just to show you one more time how to turn everything on. I'm also going to show you how to make a favorites list. Favorites list using a service search for railroads. This is something I use all the time. So first thing we'll show you is going up to Edit, Profile. Now, if we want to do what like Rich said, send them all to the radio, I'm going to recommend two things. So we're going to take a look at what your primary favorites list is. What I'm going to do is first Control A. I'm going to highlight them all because I know I want to send them all to the radio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Download On. So you see now down that column, they're all on. Now there's on the other one, I'm going to click off for now. So all those are off. So I want to have all these onto this particular radio, but I don't want them all on. I only want the GPS North Carolina one on. So what I'll do is I'll click on this one alone and just hit Monitor On. And then when I go to write this to the radio, it's going to send every one of these favorites lists to the scanner, but it's only going to have the GPS North Carolina favorites list on.
Very good. Yeah, that's a great way of doing it. And you can do this from the radio itself, but this is a lot easier because you can do them all at the same time.
Yeah, and you can also do it on the radio for monitoring on or off with one click. But, since you're already in the software, this just gives you the ability to zip it into the radio. Now, the other thing to this, this won't turn off any additional favorites lists that are not listed here that are on the radio. If those are on, you'll have to physically go in there. So if there's a favorites list on that particular radio that's already on the radio and it's not one of these lists, it's a list that you had before, you may have to go in there and turn that list off if you don't want that one on. Now I'm going to show you a really cool thing that I've used a lot with service searches for railroads. Now, I'm not going to program all 97 channels.
Right.
I'm going to show you an easy way of doing this. So let's take a look here. Now, you remember that I mentioned every one of these have a nationwide thing. They're all the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on any old county. Then I'm going to go to nationwide. And then you're going to see all these common frequency lists that we have throughout the whole entire United States. So we can do this with any one of these. I like railroads, so we're going to show you on the railroads. So I'm going to click on Railroads USA. Now, typically, for the most part, the railroads are using channels 1 through 97. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hit Append to Favorites List. Guess what I'm going to name it? Railroad Search.
There you go.
So watch this, Railroad. So I'm going to do RR. Oops, I hit the caps. Search. And then I'm going to hit, actually, because I want this to look good, I'm going to call it, I'm going to do the, and then we hit OK. Now take a look at this. So now we've added a railroad search. So I'm going to click here. And there's the department name. And right down here, look at this. All the channels by channel number. And it has all the frequencies. So this, you can run this and search out, any railroad frequencies. Same thing with
the same. Yeah, this question was earlier about half an hour ago about doing that for marine channels. And yeah, absolutely, exactly the same way. Just select the Maritime USA.
Yeah, Maritime. Let me just turn this. I'm picking up the local railroad over here. Here it is, Maritime USA. And then if I click on this, you'll be able to see that all there. So I can either do a couple of different things. Let's say there's a particular group of channels that I'm interested in. I can just select those and create a append them, or I can append them all. So you can do that with that. You can do that with the Coast Guard. You see there that we have CB radio channels. So if you want to do like a service search for CB radio channels, you can do it for the amateur radio. There's an air show category. So you can create service searches with your database scanner. Even though your database scanner doesn't have service searches, you have the ability to do it with this list.
It does. You just have to go about it differently. That's all.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It really does work great. So that's a great feature. And thanks for the question on that earlier. And we had another question about HPEs and importing back and forth. So if you have both a Helm Patrol radio and an SDS or a 436, even though they have different forms, different programs of Sentinel, they operate almost exactly the same. There's a few differences because the radios are different, but you can also import or export from one and import it to the other. So go ahead and display that one real quick.
Yeah, so what we're going to do here is we're going to export a file and send it over, so it'll be a Home Patrol file. So what I'm going to show you real quick is how to do that. So we're going to go to export. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pick that favorites list that we want to export out. So, excuse me, I'm going to select up the GPS North Carolina one. So I'm going to click on that, hit OK. So it's also going to confirm what systems within there I want to export out. So if I didn't want to export all these systems, I could just select a couple of them. In this case, I want to export all of them out. So I'm going to hit the OK button.
Yeah.
Then it's just going to think for a moment. And then it's going to tell me, it's going to give me an option where to save this. And you can see here that I'm going to keep the file name exactly the same. So I'm going to hit save. And then hit OK. What I'll do is, it's funny that I'm used to using the Mac all the time.
Yeah.
So let me just open the Sentinel software. Oops, I hit the wrong one.
Yeah.
So now I'm opening the Home Patrol software. So we were overusing the 436, 536, SDS 100, 200, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over that North Carolina GPS list that I have created over here.
Yeah. And you notice that this software has got the brown icon in the upper left corner that tells you that it's Home Patrol. Plus it also says Home Patrol Sentinel versus X36.
And you can see here my current list of, I'm pointing at the screen again, but you can see my list of favorites list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit File, and I'm going to Import. And then right here, I'm going to create a favorites list name before I import it in. So I'm going to keep everything the same. So I'm going to do GPS NC just to keep everything relevant, and then hit OK.
Sorry about that, guys. I had to itch my back.
So you see right here, it opens up in the Documents folder. This is where the file ended up. So you can see GPS NC right there. So I'm going to click on this, hit Open. It's going to take a moment. It's going to convert that file over to this software. It's going to show that it's completed. I'm going to hit OK. And look at this. I've now shared this file so I can use it on my Home Patrol 1 or 2. So all this work that I've done with the Charlotte police is now available on my Home Patrol 2. It is simple, 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 simple.
Yeah. And you don't have to go and do the work a whole nother time. You just, it's not quite as easy as copy and paste, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, I mean, how long did it take? Just a few moments?
Just less than a minute. Yeah.
Less than a minute. And that basically, so now I've shared And this is a great thing about it. If you've got a home patrol or you have an SDS, you can have the same exact file between the two radios.
All right, you want to troubleshoot a couple common problems?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
All right. Probably the second most common question we get is customer calls up and says, all right, I tried to install either Home Patrol or X36 software, and I got this error message. It says it needs .NET 2.0. Well, I checked on my computer, and I got .NET 4.0. That's even better, right? No. You have to have .NET 2. So what .NET is it's a framework or a library, utility program that other programs use in order to do stuff. It basically allows database functions to work and all this big QE computer IT nonsense stuff. But there are several versions of .NET. There's .NET this, .NET that, .NET something else. You have to use .NET 2 for Sentinel. Now, if you have .NET 3, .NET 4, .NET 78 on your computer, that's fine. They can all coexist peacefully. But in order to run Sentinel, you have to have .NET 2. Most of the time, it doesn't. You don't need to install it because it's already there. But if you need it, download it from Microsoft. Don't download it from any place other than Microsoft. Go to Microsoft. There's the direct link to it. But if you just go to Microsoft.com, .NET 2.0 in the search, and you'll get that. Download it, install it, reboot your computer, and then install Sentinel. So like Joe said, it's not a cumulative update. It's actually separate versions of .NET, and you have to have .NET 2. Not 4, not 3, but 2.
2, yes.
So repeat after me. .NET 2.
2, yes. Yeah, and like I've had to do this before on a couple of the work computers at the Scanner Master office. And Rich is right. It had .NET 4 and it had .NET this, and it needs .NET 2, and that's what it needs.
Yeah. Another neat thing, kind of a trivia thing, but this comes up from time to time, is when you check your database update, Sentinel will automatically check for an update to Sentinel itself, not the firmware for the radio, but the actual program. So every once in a while, there'll be an updated version of the Sentinel. Like after the SDSs were announced, Sentinel was updated to add the SDS radios to it. So when you update the database, it automatically checks for an update to Sentinel. If it detects that there's a newer version of Sentinel, it'll tell you there is. It'll give you a button to download it. You download that. You reinstall it. You don't have to uninstall the old program. It does it automatically when you reinstall it. And then you'll be able to go through and do your database updates.
Another typical question that we have, I'll show on screen, is there's a couple of options to be able to do this. So let's say you've got a brand new SD card and you want to do a clone. What you can do, there's two options of doing it. Create a folder in your desktop, copy everything in the SD card, put it in that folder, put in the new SD card and lay those and copy it out of that folder and put it right in the brand new SD card. That's one way. Let's say you're making this SD card brand new because the last one was corrupted and you need to, either fix that SD card or buy a brand new SD card. So we'll take a look at the software here. So what we want to do on either one of these, we want to do either on the Home Patrols or the X36 or SDSs. It's going to be in the same spot. I'll show you. So under the Home Patrol, it's going to be clear user data. So typically it'll show, I don't have a blank SD card to be able to show you, but it would show an SD card with a driver on the screen. So I'm going to show you on the other software just so you can
now see. If it's a brand new SD card that's never been used for Sentinel, it won't show up there. But if you click on the display all drives box, which you'll see again in a second, then it should show you any removable drives that are in the that are in there. So once you hit that, go ahead.
So the difference here, remember it was Home Patrol on the other software because it's Home Patrol software. On this one, it shows scanner. So what we want to do is click here. We want to clear user data. As Rich said, display all drives. Let me just pop on my SDS so you can see it pop up. So I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and if this boxes up and you're turning on the radio or you're sticking the SD card in there, after the computer finds it, just hit the refresh button on this pop-up window, and then it should show up once it's in the mass storage mode.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit mass storage mode, so it'll show up. Okay, so now that's all set. Now I'm going to do exactly what Rich said. It's in mass storage right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the refresh button. So the refresh button will pop up. Will pop up the radio, which is the SDS. It also, on some Windows 10 machine, it'll also show you USB drive G is in use, which it shows up there. If it was a blank SD card, it would show something different than that. And then
it'll show a bunch of X's instead of the serial number.
And then what I'll do, do I have anything in that radio that I don't care about?
Well, if not, you won't any longer.
Hold on one second. What I'm going to do is bear with me just 1 second. I'm going to grab a 436 that I know I don't mind dumping it up. So we're actually going to do it. So hold on.
Okay. So while he's doing that, we'll check a couple other things. So you're going to want to make an extra SD card, and the extra SD card will be used as your spare. It can be used in case your current card gets corrupted. If your current card gets corrupted, you're going to want to format in Windows first. So you're going to plug it into your computer and then go into Windows Explorer, which is that little folder icon down right below the database version date on the screen here. You see that little folder icon?
You want me to really do it, Rich?
No, that's okay. It's going to take too long to do that. But you're just going to click on that. You're going to reformat the SD card. If you don't know how to do it, give us a call. We'll help you out with that. And then you'll go through this. Once you get a drive letter for that removable drive, that thumb drive, then you'll be able to go through and do the clear user data function. All right, so he didn't want to erase his existing card. So it's going to take one that's fungible.
All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm booting up a 436, so I'm going to hit mass storage. So I'm in mass storage mode. So what I'm going to do now is, let's say I wanted to just clean out this SD card. That's another way of doing it. You can clean out the SD card. So there's a couple. I'm going to show you the real quick steps. So this SD card wasn't corrupt, but I just want to clean it out. So what I'll do is go up to scanner, and I'll go clear user data. It's going to show me it because this is not a new SD card, and this is the one I want. So I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to warn you, do you really want to do this? So because what this is going to do is this is going to erase the basically all the data on the card. And look at this. It asks you again. So 2 times it's going to ask you, do you really, really, really want to do this? Yeah. So you can't do this on accident. You really have to do this on purpose. And if you're, it's erasing it. Oh my God. But yeah, like I say, they make it difficult so that you don't do it accidentally. And if you've got a card that's corrupted, try to reformat it in Windows first. And if it fails the format in Windows, then don't even bother. Just go out and get a new card. Cards are cheap. Don't get a card that's over 32 gigs because the scanner won't recognize it. And 8 gigs is fine. You don't need a big card. No, you don't need it. I mean, the only time that you want to go up to, a certain point, like 16 or whatever it may be, is if you're using this for recordings. But you want to do a dump periodically if you're going to be using it for recordings. But if you're just using this for favorites lists, you could put on hundreds of favorites lists. It doesn't take up any space. It's a text file. I got a couple 1 gig SD cards that I've used on my home patrols. And I don't do recording on them. And that's fine. The database and a couple hundred favorites lists aren't going to take up over a half a gig.
Yeah,
Nothing at all.
Yeah. It's basically text. So it doesn't take a lot of room. What takes up room is the recording. So 4 gig cards are fine. 8 gig cards are ideal. That's why those are the cards that we sell. And then, like I say, you can use 16s. The smaller cards are getting hard to find. And sometimes it's cheaper to get the larger cards. I was at an electronics store about a year ago before this COVID nonsense started, and I couldn't get 4 and 8 gig cards. I had to buy a bunch of 16s because those were the smallest ones they had.
Oh, yeah, I'm clicking the wrong mouse.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And another question we get is kind of coming up in the comments is, if I restore my SD card or change my SD card, will I lose my DMR, my NXDN, or my ProVoice updates?
No, not at all.
When you put those updates in the radio, they go in the radio. They don't go on the SD card. They actually go in the radio, and they are in the radio. There is no way for you, the user, to remove those updates from your radio. The only way those are going to get removed is if you have to send the radio in to Uniden, get repaired, and they replace the main board. If they give it the same serial number, you can just put that code number in that you got originally. Or if they replace the radio with the new serial number, make sure they know that you had DMR, NXDN, or ProVoice so that they send you either a radio with those or codes to install it. And it's...
While we're talking here, we're going to check. I haven't used this radio in quite a while, so we're going to check to see if there's any firmware updates. So you can kind of.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the 436 might have it. Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is go up to update, firmware update. Yep. As we can still see here, the name of the SD card, which I now lost the feed for that, so I'm going to bring that up again. But what it shows on the screen right now is the name of the SD card is still the serial number of the radio, so that hasn't changed. Basically, it took out everything off of the radio. So what I'll do is let me just enter in here.
Yeah, and as Joe mentioned, updating your firmware on your radio does not negate your digital mode updates.
No.
NXDN and DMR and stuff. So, yeah, like I say, there's no way you're going to be able to remove or lose those updates yourself. It's impossible. Just ain't no way it's going to happen, boys and girls.
Nope. So we're back again with this. So I'll just click the OK button. It's going to check the server.
Hey, look at this.
You know what? I just made a mistake, and this is a good learning mistake.
Oh, you forgot your target model. No, actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter here because it's going to check the serial number of the radio.
So the cool thing about this, I just made an error, which we could you could typically do yourself. So I'm going to hit. So I actually put the firmware on here on the SDS. Doesn't matter. It's not going to be able to do anything. So if you do this by accident, don't worry about it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Tools. We're going to go to Target Model. We're going to do BCDX36HP. Click on that. Now I'm going to do it again. Probably will be updated, but we'll take a look.
Yeah. Now, there is an alternate way to do firmware updates that doesn't involve Sentinel. Most of the time, you're never going to have to do that. But if there is a way to, if you have the actual firmware file, see, it detected that it was a 436 because of the serial number of the radio. So even though the target model wasn't set properly, it detected it the first time.
Yeah, and so what this shows right here is it shows that there's no firmware update on this radio. It did technically put in the firmware update in there. The way you would basically do that, let me show you how you would, where the firmware actually would go on the SD card. So I'm going to click on right here, this, whoops, before I do that, I'm going to click on this.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to find the G drive, which is right here. And then I'm going to click on this here. And then we'll see the firmware.
Yeah.
As you can see here, it does have some 436
Yeah,
firmware.
so there's Yeah, these are the 3 files that you're going to see in there, but sometimes you're only going to see the 2. Since Jonathan has downloaded the new firmware version, it's that bin file. You can see where I'm pointing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be that .bin file. That's the actual firmware file. So if you get that firmware from another source, let's say you wanted to actually backgrade your radio to an earlier version of the firmware, and you download that, you can copy and paste it into this firmware folder on the SD card, and then it will put it in here. So whatever firmware version you put in that folder will then get written to the radio, assuming it's compatible.
The other thing too, you want to be careful when you're in this folders. You don't want to move any of these folders around, because what basically is happening on your scanner is it's looking to these folders in the position that they're in. So if you go and change a folder name, or you change location, what'll happen is it'll corrupt your SD card, because it's like the radio will look for this particular folder and say, ooh, where is it? It's kind of like, it's a pathway. So the radio knows, in order to get the firmware, it's going to look in the firmware folder, and it's going to look for it there. If you change it to firmware XYZ, it's never going to update the firmware.
Exactly. And then once you unplug the radio and it updates the firmware on the radio, it will automatically delete that from that firmware's folder. So if you are doing something like an older version, make sure you have a copy of that someplace if you wanted to revert. And then, let's say you put in an old version, the current version is 1.26. If you put in, say, 1.21 to see if that the newer firmware caused a problem, you can still update the firmware by doing the same process where you update the firmware, just like we just showed. So once you once you unplug the cable, the radio itself will say updating firmware, do not unplug, do not remove batteries, whatever, and it will actually update the firmware in the radio and then erase it from the SD card.
Now, another tip: you're on a portable radio, and I'm running this off of the battery power. Now, the other thing too is, if you want to do this all at once, instead of unplugging the wire, you can basically power this radio down. And what it'll do is it'll start installing the firmware here. So it's another thing. So if let's say we didn't have any batteries in this and you want to get it out of the way, just put the firmware in here. Make sure you're connected to a hard line, because you don't want, let's say the batteries were very low. So it goes and tries to install the firmware, and then it conks out in the middle. That could cause an issue as well. You don't want you want to make sure if the batteries are low on here, just hit the power button on your radio and it'll reboot it. And you're connected to power, so it won't conk out in the middle.
Yeah. And hey, there you go. Then you're done.
There we go. But yeah, I mean, that's relatively simple. I know we're hitting all of you with a whole bunch of information tonight. I mean, this video will be available on our YouTube channel, so you can look at it, later on, which would be great. But yeah, I mean, these are awesome things that you can do. The other thing too, with these service types or service searches that we put in with a railroad service search, in order to be able to use this, let's take a look at one more time. This is a good point here. So let's say you don't typically run railroads on your scanner. You want to make sure, as you can see, service type is railroads. In order to use this service search, you need to make sure that the railroad service type is on. So let's say you don't frequently scan railroads, but you have some interest in it for whatever reason when you're out and about and you want to do a service search on railroads. You have to make sure that the service type is on. You can do it on the scanner itself, and you can also do it, as you can see, on the software as well. So you can manually go in to your service types, find railroads, turn that on, and you're all set. So, I mean, that's something that you can certainly do, especially marine channels. Like, I don't typically do those. But let's say I did create a service search and I turn on the marine service search. And I'm like, whoa, nothing's happening here. So then I go in to the service search, turn on the marine ones, and then voila, I'll have, it'll be able to find all those, be able to listen to all those channels. And the other thing too is, let's say, for example, this was the only favorites list you had on, and you didn't have the railroad service search on, so you go to turn it on, it's going to tell you nothing to scan. There's another hint. Go over, turn on railroad service searches, and then I'll have something to scan, because it's looking for, you know, things that you have turned on for service type. And if you don't have that service type on, it's not going to scan what's in that favorites list. So in this favorites list, it's all railroad. If you don't have that service type on, it's going to prompt you when you select that favorites list, and that's the only favorites list you're running. It'll tell you nothing to scan.
Right. Yeah. So when you get that dreaded nothing to scan, check that the favorites list is turned on. Check that the service types are turned on, and if you've got location enabled, make sure you have a valid location that matches at least something that's in your database. And they're not all locked out.
Yeah, because what's going to happen with my North Carolina favorites list, you saw there, it's basically a bunch of systems that are in North Carolina. So let's say I drive up to Virginia, for example. I'm going to get nothing to scan on my trip because it's basically everything that's close to North Carolina. Right. The other cool thing that we've talked about so many times, do I have it on here? So as many of you know, that I made a trip up to the Horseshoe Curve, and I told people that, you know, I created a favorites list that'll monitor all the state police in between North Carolina up to Pennsylvania. Except Pennsylvania, you know, the state police are encrypted. But I programmed in the DPW up there, or the highway department. Yeah. So what I did is I created a favorites list, which I can show you right here. Where is it? PA trip. So you can see here that I created a favorites list with all the sites and departments I wanted to monitor for Virginia, West Virginia, and a couple of them for West Virginia. And then, of course, I did the StarNet system, and you can see Penn DOT. So what I did is I created a favorites list, and then I used location services. So while I'm traveling on the highway, I'm not getting all the local police and fire, and I'm not getting the county sheriff and all that business. I'm just getting stuff that's pertaining to the highway traffic. Yeah. The only way to be able to do this is because law dispatch is a wide range of things. It could be local, it could be county, it could be the state. All those things, there's no separation in between.
Transit police, all kinds of different things. So, yeah, that's one thing, one drawback onto the way these database scanners are done is that they don't differentiate between levels of agencies, state, county, local. I kind of wish there was a way to do that, or at least segment out the state police agencies so that you can turn on just state police for highway people, but it's not going to happen.
And this is the best way of doing it, because you're basically creating a favorites list and you're weeding out all the other stuff. And that's typically how I use favorites lists all the time. I came from the same thing when Rich and I beta tested the Home Patrol. It's like, this is, you know, I'm not going to want to use the zip code because I want to be able to customize. And the zip code portion of this was okay when you're in a pinch. But I like doing favorites lists because I'm able to customize. I'm able to pick and choose departments, towns, you know, whatever I want to monitor. And then I can create a whole, as you can see, I can create a whole slew of favorites lists. You know, I have all different types of favorites lists that pertain to certain areas or for certain scanners. Like there's certain favorites lists that I use for in the scanners in the house. There's certain favorites lists I use in the scanner in the car. And as you can see, you know, you can create a whole bunch of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And with favorites lists, in the database, don't get me wrong, the database feature on these radios is great, and that's a great way to get you started. So that'll get you going. And then as you learn the radio and learn the software, get more comfortable with it, you can go in and do your own favorites lists, and that will really enhance your scanning listing. Another question we get is Sentinel the only option for these scanners? No. There are other softwares, but you're still going to need Sentinel to do the database and firmware updates. Other software like ARC products or ProScan or some of these other ones, they will be great for programming favorites lists and doing virtual control. But in order to do the database and the firmware updates, you still have to use Sentinel. So, yeah, use ARC 536 or ARC Patrol. It's a fantastic software. It does great stuff. But you're still going to have Sentinel going as well. Not all the time, just on your computer.
Yeah, so basically they're going to work hand in hand. So with the Arc Patrol and the Arc 536, in order to create favorites lists, you're going to have to access the database. So that means you're going to have a paid subscription to RadioReference. So it's no different than any other software. You're going to go in, you're going to ping the RadioReference database, you're going to log in with your username and password once, and then it'll save it in the software. And then you'll select the systems that you want to monitor, import it into the software, in turn creating a favorites list. Now,
the one big difference between Sentinel and those software when you're doing that is that with the other software, with the paid software, you will get the stuff that's currently in the database on display, not what was downloaded on Sunday.
Yes, exactly. So if you're, let's say something changes on Wednesday, on Thursday, you decide to update the radio because you see the change. On those paid softwares, you'll be able to do it instantaneously on the next day or the day that it comes available in the database. If you're only using Sentinel software, as we mentioned before, each and every Sunday, the update is available, so you'll do it then once the update is available through the Sentinel software. So you have to wait a little bit, but if you want instant gratification, the paid software will allow you to be able to import that in as soon as it's updated.
With a paid membership at RadioReference.
Exactly.
And one thing that we're not going to really get into much tonight, we're just going to mention it real quickly because we've been going a long time and we don't want to bore everybody, but display editing on your SDSs. So if you've got an SDS 100 or an SDS 200, you are aware that you can completely customize your colors and locations of different items on the display. You can do that in ARC products or in other products as well, but you can very easily do it in Sentinel. And this is a quick and dirty show of how to do it.
Not so dirty.
Well, it's not so dirty, but
I know.
It's a quick way of doing it. Now, remember with the SDSs, you have several different types of displays. You have conventional and trunking, and then you have simple and detail of each. So detail has got a lot of information. Simple has got basic information. So, it gets very crowded on detail, but that might be too much information for you. So you might want to use simple. And, of course, you have different and you have different information for trunking than you do for conventional channels. And then, of course, there's some special screens for searches and weather and tone outs and stuff. So you can change all these colors. And if you go to one of the detail pages, go to detail trunking.
I actually was going to show how to change a couple of colors here.
Oh, okay.
So let me just click on this. So let's say we want to do this and we want to do it red. Let me just see here. That's the text color.
Yeah, so you can change the text color and the background color. So don't put black on black. It ain't going to work. Or white on white or orange on orange.
So what we can do is we'll do this as patriotic. We'll do red. I'm going to do this as black. You see what happened there when I made the text black?
Yeah.
So
it goes away, yep.
And then we'll do let's see, we'll do white here. And then
we lost your screen.
Oh shoot. Hold on one second. I'll make it come back.
Yeah, so you can change all the colors. You can change the text colors. You can change the background colors. So pick a combination of background and text colors that's easy to see. And then the other thing you can do too is you can move items around on the screen. So if you use a GPS, make sure that you have a field on there for GPS so that you know that the GPS is seeing the satellites. If you put in the longitude or the latitude on there, you can see when it has acquired the satellites, and when you see that number change, you can see how you're moving.
Look at that.
There we go.
White and blue.
Look at that. There you go. And again, you can change the location of some of the devices on the screen. So if you don't need TGID, you don't need the talk group number, you can change that to something else. You can see there's a GPS indication on the bottom that will tell you when your GPS is acquired or the GPS is plugged in. If you change one of those fields to latitude or longitude, it will tell you that your GPS is actually acquired. And it's a great way to make sure your GPS is working. And like I say, you can change it to any way you want to. You can also export these and import them. So if your buddy has got a display that you just absolutely love, and you think that's the greatest thing since they put tabs on beer cans, then he can send you that as a file, and then you can import it and basically copy your radio to it.
Yeah, and this is really cool. And you can see here where you can edit the options. So let me just show real quick. So let's say we wanted to swap out, we want the where it shows time, we want to switch that to date. So I can just click here, and then I can go to the date one and make that the time one. So we can basically swap out any of these. Or let's say you want this screen to be really simple and not have all the other stuff in there. You can make them blank. So you can select where the time is. I can go click empty. I can go here to date, and I can make this empty. And you can do it that way as well if you want to simplify the screen even more. But yeah, I mean, the great thing about it is a lot of people have various colors and displays. Some of it's actually shared on RadioReference on the forum. So if you see something that you like, you have the ability to download it there and import it into the software. And then you can customize.
It's exactly what I did. I saw one on there that I loved, and I just liked the guy's color schemes, and I copied it. I'm not and this is, plagiarism is a good thing sometimes. And when you share things like that, you're sharing the wealth. So yeah, it's a cool thing to do. And it's not that difficult to do. Just remember though, you have to send it back. You have to send it to the radio once you're done with this.
That's for sure. So let me close this out, and let's see here. I think, do we have some questions? I think we've kind of covered everything. So shall we dive into some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go into it. We're going to give a shout out to all of our regulars and to all of our newcomers today. You know who you are, and howdy everybody. And we got a couple of quick shout outs. Dave got his ham license, so congratulations, Dave. KF0CFD. So that's a quite an accomplishment. One of these days, Jonathan. One of these days, my friend.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Yes, Will, I did remodel my room a little bit. I did mention that last week. So I still have the cabinet back here. I put the desk behind me on this wall, my secondary desk. Got some computer monitors and such back there now, so I can just sit here. I can watch the trains go by, and I also use that. That's my Windows machine. I use that for programming radios. Hey Jay, I talked to you on the phone today, and let's see here. No, I talked to a couple of you guys today. So Butch asked. There's a specific scan category, the SDS 200 for marine channels. We touched on this briefly earlier a little while ago. So when Jonathan showed you how to make service searches on your SDSs, so that covers that. So basically, you're going to create a favorites list out of the nationwide database for the specific thing you want: marine channels, railroads, CBs, that kind of stuff. Scanner trick from Dale. Put all of them, most of them, in the cabinet with wheels so you can have summer and fall locations. Yeah, gee, I wonder who's done that. So,
it does move around. I mean, that's was the wife's idea. We've mentioned that before. Yep. And the great thing about it is like Rich has used the example with his cabinet, repainting the room. It's on wheels. Yep. Unplug it. Roll it out of the room.
Unplug. And it's a great way to get at the back of the radios for checking the wirings, because, that's backed up against the wall, and it's kind of hard to get at the back of the radio. So I just pull it out. I make sure I leave enough lead on there so I can pull it out and walk around the back, and it can.
Yeah, you don't want to be running too short on lead, because you'll end up yanking plugs out, and it could be a mess.
Yeah, I've got 12-foot jumpers on there, so I've got about between that and the elevation. I got about 10 feet of being able to move the cabinet back and forth. And I just bought some of that 1.5-inch white split loom to go from my desk into the back of the cabinet and stuff, so I can that keeps the wires, so you don't even see those wires now. So let's see here. HP, you talked about that. So yeah, we answered most of these questions in line today. We didn't stop and we didn't wait till the end to do them. So we answered most of the questions already. So we answered that question.
How many of you liked, kind of a software overview live? This is something, like typically what I'll do is I'll record this with a screen reader and then upload it to the Scanner Master YouTube page. We've done an overview of the Sentinel software on our Scanner Master YouTube page. I went through and did a video on that. And it's a lot more relaxed, and it's a little bit slower pace. Where it's live, we're kind of bouncing around all over the place. So if you guys
kind of rushing things a little.
If you guys like this, where we're kind of diving into a software, let us know, because we could do something with one of the Butel softwares and kind of go through a couple of things that are important, and then of course address some of your questions real time. What does this do, or how do I do this? The thing is I love teaching this stuff. Like if there was a Scanner Master University, I would love to be the professor of, programming of scanners. For the most part, the funny thing about it was anytime that we had a new programmer come on staff. Now, you would typically think our programming manager would train them, but he doesn't. So it was typically me. So basically, I sat down with the person. I went through how to do the programming, went over the software, the various things that you'll run into with the software, and some of the cool things that'll make your life easier. With any of these softwares, you want to work smarter, not harder.
Harder, you betcha. All right, James asked, with the 436 HP, how old is it, and is the firmware still updated? So if I recall correctly, the 436 came out 2014 time frame. Yeah, 2013, 2014, and it, even though it's 6, 7, 8 years old, it's still a current radio. It's still currently 2014. It's still being made. It's still being sold brand new. There is a couple version updates to it. The original radio had an issue with the memory battery that maintained the clock and some of the display lighting, and they have fixed that with a free repair program, which unfortunately just expired about a month or two ago. So they maintained that for 6 years. So if you didn't get your radio fixed within the first 6 years, it's too late now. But they did fix that for free up until very recently. And then the newer versions of the radios had an extra capacitor on the main board, just pretty much right behind here. It's called the C1 capacitor, and that helped prevent some issues on UHF. So newer radios do have some minor physical updates to it, but the firmware files are still maintained and updated. There hasn't been a firmware update in a while, but I'm sure there will be down the road, and these are still currently maintained radios.
Quick hint. You want to know if your firmware is up to date on your 436 or 536? Go to the menu, go to settings, go to upgrade. If you don't see upgrade, your firmware is really old. If you see upgrade and you only have one of the upgrades,
Pro Voice,
then okay. So you
got middle of the range,
Yeah, so what you need to do is when you go to menu, go to settings, go to upgrade, you should be able to see 3 upgrades, NXDN, DMR, and Pro Voice. If you see all those, your firmware is probably up to date, So you'll be able
one
to
of the
put
latest ones, yeah.
Yeah. So in that spot there, I kind of went there. So let's say if you end up purchasing one of those keys, that's exactly where you would go in the radio to put in one of those keys. So if you end up purchasing for your old 436, you want to give it some love and give it some DMR, then what you would do is go to the menu, go to settings, go to upgrade, DMR, and put that key in, and that baby is going to work on DMR.
Very good. So the other questions we get somewhat related is people ask, how do I update the database in my 396XT or my 996P2? You don't.
you know, we call those radios, and Rich and I basically coined the phrase is clean slate scanners. That means you're buying a scanner, it's got nothing in it. So guess what? You either got to have Scanner Master program it, or you're going to program it. So
somebody's going to program it. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, those don't have databases, and even though they do have GPS capabilities, since they don't have the database, you're going to have to do your own programming.
That's a question that we get a lot. So I bought the 325 P2.
Mm-hmm.
I got the GPS. I hooked it up.
Yeah.
It shows me that there's nothing to scan. Yes, because you need to program it. Once you program it, and when you import in information in from RadioReference, it's going to also pull some GPS information for each system or group that you're putting into the scanner. So then you enable GPS on that particular system, and then it'll run off of GPS. Now that's a key thing with those radios. You need to enable GPS. Remember, we talked about favorites lists. You need to enable GPS on favorites lists. You need to enable it on a system on these clean slate scanners, or it's not going to work. It's going to you're going to move. Let's say Attleboro, for example. I'm going to get 300 miles away, and guess what? It's going to be still scanned at Attleboro because it's not going to know to turn it off.
Right, and you're not going to hear it from 300 miles away. So, So, Kevin mentioned that there's really no need to update the database if the area you listen to hasn't been updated in RadioReference. Mm-hmm. So, if you take a look at the RadioReference database, you're going to see one of 3 different colors on the county for that particular in that particular state. So, you click on a state, and you can see the counties. They're going to be green, which means they've been updated within the last 24 hours, and it's going to be kind of a yellowish tan if it's been updated in the last 3 days. And if the last update is more than 3 days ago, then it's just going to be plain white. So if you see your county highlighted, you know it's been updated in the last few days. Unfortunately, it only goes back about 3 days, or is it 3 days or a week on those?
I can't remember exactly the time period. What I can do is another cool thing that I use with RadioReference, because
it is in the last week. It is the last week. So, if it's been updated in the last week, it's going to be yellow. It's going to be gray if it hasn't been updated in the last week, and green if it's been updated in the last 24 hours.
So I'm logged into RadioReference right here, and this is my home screen. So all the counties that are important to me, I've put them on my watch list, and you're able to do that. So every time I go on RadioReference, which is daily, this is my home screen. So I look here, and basically I can see that the North Carolina Viper system has recently had an update. And even though that the color's now yellow, it still shows me 11.3. There was a change. So
so it was more than 24 hours ago, but still yesterday.
Yeah. So the cool thing about it is if you're a paid member or a free member, you may want to set up your watch list on your favorites list, and not favorites list, on the stuff that you like to listen to. And just periodically when you log in to RadioReference, there's something new on Viper. So what I'll do is I'll click right on this, and then I'll scroll down and say, all right, what was looks like we got a new site here. Let's see if there's anything else, and I'll scroll down and just take a quick peek. Could be just that site, but it's a good thing about RadioReference. definitely set it as a favorite on your browser so you can check periodically. And being a paid member or a free member and setting up the watch on these various, that looks like the only thing that's going on there. But setting it up,
if you go, you can also go up and look for. There should be a listing on the what talk groups have been changed new. So when you look on the talk group list, you'll see. So good if you click on trunking system.
Oh yeah.
So click on a state, and then click on trunking system.
Yeah. So we'll do the. Let's do the new system. Let's see here.
All right. And then,
this is an old
system.
system.
Then just below, right there, underneath where it says system talk groups, anything that's new will be brought right up to the top.
Yeah, right here. So it shows that the last change was.
And then if you go down below that, under where it says system talk groups, and directly below that, you see where it says show new talk groups. Down, up.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, there's nothing new here.
Yeah. So if there's something new, it'll show you what talk groups are new.
Yeah, let's go to that Viper system again. We'll take a quick peek.
Mm-hmm. I know there's going to be updates there.
So let's look at Viper.
That's one of the largest systems in the country.
Yeah, as we learned about during that show that we did all about
with Marshall. Yeah.
So let's see here. No, there hasn't been any new
there. All right. Well, like I say, if there's been new talk groups recently, they'll be listed there. So, all righty. So that's there. There's people have their personal preferences on what type of SD cards they like to use in their radios. SanDisk is the big name. If you use and Kevin writes, if you use the Max Endurance card, those are really good ones, and they have a higher MBTA, or MBTF, mean time between failures. So that's the card there. That is very good.
This is the SanDisk Ultra.
Yeah, Ultra and Max are good, and like I say, the better cards will have a better tolerance to errors and less likely to be corrupted, absent being abused.
The other thing, if you're into photography, I use the SanDisk Extreme just for a couple of reasons. If I decide to shoot video, it'll support that. Also, it's a high endurance SD card. If you're looking to purchase SD cards, they're not a sponsor of the show, but B&H Photography in New York City is one. They have awesome stock of the things, and two, they're a fair price. If you go to your local drugstore, which I'm not going to name drugstores, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for that SD card.
Yep, and maybe both.
Yeah. Yes. The SD card that I typically purchase, the Extreme, I get that about $10-12 through B&H. I've seen that SD card $30-40. I mean, if you go to the big box store or the drugstore on the corner, I'll tell you a quick story. I was out on a trip and I forgot to put my SD card in, and I didn't have any backup SD cards in my camera bag. Mm-hmm. I paid the price at one of those drugstores.
Oh, we've all been there.
Now I carry a whole slew of them. So when I could buy them $10 a piece versus $30 for one.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. That $20, I'll buy you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So Chris asked if that's the updates and stuff that we've done today. Is that what we saw with the SD card update? So that's exactly what we saw with the SD card update. And that product is intended for people who don't have a Windows computer and can't do it themselves, or they're not comfortable doing it themselves, or they just don't want to do it and they want to pay the extra money to have us do it. We'll be glad to do it for you.
You won't believe how many people this is the only computer type of device they have, in which you can't program a scanner with this. So they do an SD card from us,
Right.
and they get it updated periodically. Like if they know, they look at RadioReference, on their phone and say, oh
yeah,
oh crap, there's a new thing. I got to get an SD card from Scanner Master.
Yeah. And we get people calling up saying, oh man, I got to send the radio to you. How long is that going to take?
No.
Don't send the radio. We'll send the card to you. We'll do it all over the phone for you, and you don't have to do anything, and then we'll mail the card to you. So, yeah, it's a great product. It's $59.95. You can do it yourself if you got a Windows computer, but if you don't have one, we're there for you. We'll take care of you. All righty. So, going down here, Kevin, you can go to the SanDisk website and purchase any of the SD cards they have. The Max Endurance is one. So, so there are other places you can get them, but B&H is always a great source. They're a great source for a lot of this kind of stuff. So
B&H is phenomenal. I've been using them for all my photography needs. And, when I saw that they had the SD cards for like 10, I'm like I'll place an order for something and then I'll throw on an SD card for $10. You never can have enough SD cards.
Yeah, you never have enough. It's like beer and sex. So you can never get enough of it. So. All righty. So, so anything you can do on the scanner, you can do easier in Sentinel. Like Joe wrote. So, you can. Just about everything, except on the Home Patrol. Pretty much everything you can do on the scanner, you can do in Sentinel. And on the Home Patrol, a lot of the stuff you have to do in Sentinel because you can't do it on the scanner because it doesn't have the numeric keypad. So it's usually easier to do in Sentinel. I'm very adept at turning on and off favorites lists by using the menu system on my 536s and SDSs just because I'm used to doing it. But, it's really simple to do that all in Sentinel and then sending it to the radio. And quick keys. We did not touch on quick keys. But quick keys on the 536, 436, and SDSs work very similar to the way they do on other unit and scanners. There are no quick keys on the Home Patrol because it's a different setup. But, quick keys work the same way, and that's one more thing to check if you get that nothing to scan thing. So if you assign quick keys, make sure they're turned on. PJH writes that he uses different profiles for scanning at home and on the road. So, absolutely. You can use profiles and have several different profiles and have a home profile if you use the same scanner at home or on the road, or let's say you can even have a third profile for bouncing around town and one if you're if you're a guy and spend a lot of time out on the road. So, all righty. So, and then for GPS enabled. So, absolutely. And Dale, I'm not sure if you're old enough to remember removable tabs on beer cans. And soda pop cans. They used to actually, when you pull them, they used to actually come off in your hand, and you walk around with a ring. So, Evan wants to see the new shack. I may do a new video on this in the next month or so. It's been a year since I've done a video at my shack, so I might do that. Let's see here. Joe, I remember when the tabs came off. Okay, so Mr. Biokel wrote that he just made the RH96 mod to hook it up to his 996P2, but there's a lag time. So for those of you who aren't aware, the RH96, the remote head for the 996 BCT 15, 396, etc., was never intended to work on the 996P2 or the 325. Myself and another guy worked out a way to make that work on the 996P2, and we found out that it also works on the 325. I did the testing and some of the concept, and this other guy, and I'm sorry, his name is escaping my brain right now. He did the actual programming and creating an Arduino, basically a little computer interface. My work on it was relatively minor. I just did the testing and gave him an RH96 to make it work. So, and we posted that at Radio Reference. It does work, but you're right. There is a little bit of latency because what that does is it takes the data and it changes the data to fool the radio into thinking, or to fooling the RH96 to think that the radio is an XT version radio instead of a P2 version of the radio. So there is going to be a little bit of latency on between the radio and the display. So if you're looking at the display of the radio and the RH96 at the same time, there's going to be a little bit of lag time. It works great, but yeah, there is going to be a little bit of lag time.
Same thing with the if you've used the Siren app. So if you've got the 536 and you're using the Wi-Fi dongle, there will be a little bit of latency on that as well because it's basically going through your Wi-Fi network. The Siren app is really cool. You know, I was just thinking about that the other day. I have a tablet that I have in the bedroom, and once I get an outdoor antenna set up, what I'm going to do is it's going to run into here. I'm going to put the Wi-Fi dongle on one of these radios, leave that radio on, pull up the Siren app in the bedroom, and then run it on the tablet. You know, have it, you know, have the great reception of a radio that's in this room and be able to listen to it in another room.
Yeah, until your wife says, knock that stuff off.
No, she won't do that.
Well, mine would. Let's see here. Don's our buddy in Bermuda. What do you recommend? Evan writes, what do we recommend for an aircraft antenna for his 125 and which rechargeable batteries? So, yeah, we got the VHF 150 antenna, but unfortunately, the airband antenna is still out of stock.
Let me see if I can pull that up and at least show him the antenna at least.
It pretty much looks like any other rubber duck, but it's cut specifically for aviation band. Unfortunately, it is out of stock right now, and we've been having a hard time getting them. As far as rechargeable batteries, you want to use nickel metal hydride batteries, or NIMH. You want to, the higher the current capacity normally is better. You want 2100 is the very least I would go. 2300 is as supplied with the radio, and I've seen them as high up as 2500 and 2700. The higher the current level is, the longer you're going to go between charges.
Yeah, so
that's what the antenna looks like.
Yeah, so this is the BNC version of it. There's only a BNC version of it available. It's the W901 airband portable antenna. As you can see here, just looking at the reviews on scannermaster.com, the two people that gave it a review, they gave it some pretty good. One person gave it a 5 stars, and the other person gave it 4 stars. So it works really well. So hopefully we'll get this back in stock. And as Rich and I both tell you time and time again, our website has this button here, which I'm hovering my mouse here, email me back in stock. So what you can do is just type in your email address in here, hit submit, and that'll allow you to get an email as soon as it's back in stock. This is made by a company called Watson. They're over in the UK. A lot of times they'll send us what's available, and then we'll request it. Sometimes we'll get it, sometimes we won't, depending on what the stock is.
So you named your dog after an antenna?
No.
Oh.
No. Watson, that was a Sherlock Holmes reference.
Oh, okay. I'll take your word for it. Yeah, we believe you, Jonathan. Yeah.
No, it wasn't named. My daughter was, we were thinking of names, and that, she doesn't know anything about Watson antennas. So she didn't,
at least you didn't name her Watson.
No, I wasn't around when she was being named.
So let's see here. Hey, Chris, how you doing, buddy? Chris is the one of the big honchos in our local GMRS club. He takes care of all the technical stuff, and so he's connecting a link for our East repeater to connect to our West repeater. Off-topic question: how many items can you put in your watch list on Radio Reference? I don't know if there's a set limit on that, but you may have to end up scrolling if you put too many. So I wouldn't put too many on there, or otherwise the list is going to scroll. So I'm not sure if there's a set number. And then the follow-up question on that, Jonathan: how do you add your favorite audio feeds to your homepage?
Well, I saw that question. I was getting prepared for it. So what you'll do is basically now it's two different websites, Broadcastify and RadioReference. So I pulled up this Stateville area-wide railroads, and what you're going to do is you can add this to your listen feed. So I'm going to click that, and now it shows it here, the three. So I'm going to go back to my, so I just added this one in. So I'm going to go back over here. You see that there's just these two. I'm going to hit the refresh button, and voila, there's my three. So I'll show you again. So I'll go back over here. I'm in Broadcastify, their website. So what I did is I added this by clicking here. I don't think it'll do it twice. No, it won't do it twice. It knows it's already in there. And then it'll show here. And then go over to RadioReference and hit refresh, and then it'll show up. Now, the other cool thing, check this out too. Now, remember Rich mentioned, if we have a whole bunch of them, you're going to be doing a lot of scrolling. So you have the ability to move these by priority. See, on this page, you can put Charlotte. The next one that's closest to me is the Spencer Shops. And then the next one that's closest to me is Statesville. And then this Newton would be the next one. So I did that here. Just go back over here. Hit refresh. And didn't do it over here. That's strange. But
it's supposed to.
No, there it is.
There it is. We just weren't patient enough.
There you go. So it changed it around.
Yeah. Broadcastify and RadioReference are there's one company, but they are separate websites. But they do interact very well with each other because they are owned by the same company. So so that is. Go ahead, John.
The other thing too, we actually had a conversation with Lindsay Blanton of RadioReference, which we learned a lot of the behind the scenes questions. We had a lot of behind the scenes questions. He was more than willing to answer it.
Oh yeah.
So definitely check out on the Scanner Guys YouTube account for the interview with RadioReference's and Broadcastify's owner, Lindsay Blanton. It was a very interesting conversation that we had with him.
And he answered all the hard questions, so he didn't duck any of them. And and we asked him before the show, "Hey, do you want us to hold off on this?" And I said, "No, go for it, man. He'll answer any of the questions." And he did. He came right out and did them. So give him some kudos for that. So a couple more attaboys for B&H. Yeah, we like those guys, and they are not a sponsor, but they are good. So we're. If we like something, we'll let you know about it. So, we posted the video on the Sentinel software to the comment list here. What store was I in? What electronic store was I in? I'm not sure what that question is about, Donnie, but if you want to clarify that. Oh, thank you, Mr. Bioco. Richard Plummer was the name of the guy who did the programming and creation of the adapter box to allow the RH96 to work on the P2 scanners. I just was drawing a complete blank on his name, but Rich Plummer was the guy who did that. The guy's a genius. He created the adapter box, a couple IC chips and a couple discrete components and connectors, and programmed the processor in that. And my thing was basically to make sure that it worked and, kind of gave it a little direction on it, because I don't know how to program those things. So Joe says he likes on-the-loop batteries. We sell those. Those are the AA. No, I'm sorry. We sell the Tenergy batteries. They're very similar. Tenergy, yeah. Those are good batteries too. The ones that we sell are 2,500 milliamp hours. And another place I haven't bought them, but I've heard good things about them. The rechargeable batteries you get at IKEA are supposed to be very good. I've had a couple of different people say that they've really liked the batteries they get at IKEA. So Dale asked if there's an error antenna in the cup. That was in the picture on one of the pages. No, that I forget what antenna that was. That was in the cup holder picture. I don't remember what antenna that was because I swap antennas all the time.
I'm gonna have to look to see if I have. I have pretty much every antenna that we carry. I'm wondering if I have that 901.
Yeah, you were lucky enough to work in the office, so you were able to,
I have
onto those.
Yeah, I mean, I have almost every antenna possible and every single adapter, for the most part, because working on various.
You need them for that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when we were testing out various things. Of course, this is one job where I take my work home with me, literally, in which I don't mind. Especially when there's new toys. I love that.
And no, you do not have to assemble those batteries that you buy from IKEA. Will says IKEA's are.
They have the photos, step 1, step 2.
Yeah. And they're rebranded Eneloops batteries. So there you go, right there. Some people are saying the Eneloop batteries are good. I like the IKEAs. Turns out they're the same thing. Yeah. Todd has a kind of an off-topic question, but he's got a 796 and a 250. And what do we suggest for mobile antenna? Well, both of those radios have a BNC connector. Mm-hmm. And your mobile antenna is pretty much defined by how you want to mount it. So the best antenna you can put on a vehicle is a hole mount, where you drill a hole, you put an NMO mount in there and screw the antenna onto it and run it in there. But that's a kind of a permanent thing, and a lot of people don't want to do that. The next best would be something like a trunk lip mount if you've got a sedan with a trunk. If you've got an SUV or some other vehicle that doesn't have a conventional trunk, then that might be a little difficult. And the third option is a mag mount, which for a scanner is usually going to be just fine. And the mag mount antennas, they start at about $20, and you can spend $150 depending on the actual antenna that you get with it. And then there's the fourth option, which I don't really recommend except for very local stuff. And those are those in-window antennas. The little antennas that stick to the inside of the window. They work okay for local stuff, but you wouldn't want to use those for longer distance stuff. And if you're the next thing you want to do when you're looking at a mobile antenna is what frequency range you're going to listen to. So if you are listening to only one specific band, you can buy an antenna that's designed specifically for that band. That'll give you your best results. But if you're like most people with scanner, you want to listen to UHF, VHF, 800, and everything else, then you want to get a wideband scanner antenna like a Contoko or Austin Spectra or something.
Yeah, Joe brings up a good point. A lot of the sometimes the trunk lip mounts will work on some SUVs. It depends on the setup of the SUV. Whether or not the tailgate or not the tailgate, but the back, if it flattens out, you may be able to do that. Definitely take a look at Scanner Master's website. You'll be able to see some blown up shots of it.
So basically, take a look at the way your tailgate works. If the tailgate goes like this, when it goes up like this, it's not going to work because the bottom of the lip of the tailgate is going below the roof line. If it opens like this, the trunk lip mounts should work if you can get it angled right. But if it opens like this and the lip of the trunk goes below the roof line, it's not going to work because it's going to get jammed up in there.
So Todd just posted a follow-up comment. I'm thinking, for VHF, UHF, and 800, the best one would be the Comtelco, low-profile mobile antenna. It's going to cover those bands perfectly. It's low profile, and it's also the antenna that's used by the police. Oh, there's all of Rich's antennas. Let me show you the antenna on the website. So this will be a mobile option. So if you go on, let me pull this up so we can see it. So if you go over to antennas and then to go to mobile favorites.
I don't have that airband antenna in here though. Unfortunately, I might have one out in the garage.
So if we click on this, it's $54.95. This is the current price of this video when it was posted. This could change. If you're watching it, imagine somebody watching this video 10 years down the road. It could be a little bit different, but this is the antenna I would recommend. The Comtelco low-profile mobile antenna works well on VHF, UHF, and the 800 megahertz. This antenna is 17 inches tall. It has the NMO mount. Let me pull this up into a larger screen, Todd, so you can see. So there's the NMO mount. So you can use any of those mounts that Rich mentioned, the hole mount, the trunk lip mount, and the mag mount. And you can see down here, look at this. All the mounts are right down here, so you can kind of look at them and see what's available. We've got 2 different mag mounts. We have a 3-inch mag mount, and then we have the heavy duty one, which is the 5-inch mag mount. That won't budge off your car no matter how fast you go.
No, and you need 2 hands to pull it off.
Yeah, you'll need 2 hands. Is right.
Yeah, you might need to get your neighbor over to help you.
The other thing, if you're driving one of those big rig tractor trailers, we actually have a NMO mirror mount. So, if you're driving a big rig, you can use one of these. It'll
with
go
a pipe type mirror.
I've seen with some people with pickup trucks, they've used this mount in the bed of the truck. Whether they have one of those racks that are in the back, they've been able to customize this mount so it'll connect up to that rack. So there's so many different options.
I've also seen people use that same mount by taking out the U-bolts, and there's the 4 holes on the side of it, and they screw that directly into the bed rail. Yep. Donnie earlier mentioned what electronics store I was talking about, and I wasn't sure what he was referring to, but Jerry reminds us it was probably trying to find the SD cards at electronics stores. So I think he was asking about that. So I was at Fry's back before they kind of went under the Fry's Electronics is pretty much run out of just about everything. They're having a lot of issues. But back when they were still a going concern, the smallest SD card they had, I think, was like 16 gigs at the time. So the smaller cards are getting hard to find, but the you can use the larger card. The only problem you're going to have with a larger card is it's going to take a few extra seconds to boot up the radio with a larger card. It's usually not a big deal, but it's just going to take it'll take you 12 seconds instead of 9 seconds for the radio to load up. So don't sweat it. Jerry says that Targets doesn't carry anything less than the 16 gigs. Let's see here. Dale says he likes the 18-inch wideband VHF mobile antenna. I've had a lot of good luck using VHF mobile antennas for both UHF and 800 as well as VHF. The way the math works on it, they just happen to work very well. The thicker the element, the better it's going to be.
Want to hear a quick story?
Sure, why not?
So, Rich, I ended up purchasing a sample, and the Scanner Master purchased a sample antenna. Of course, it was a VHF antenna. So Rich Barnett, the owner of the company, went over to China, and he said, "Can I bring this antenna with me?" That's one antenna I don't have because he left it over in China. So that's what I don't have.
One thing we have learned
don't
is
give
that
Rich anything.
Don't give him. That's why we never told him that we were beta testing the SDS 100.
No,
because he would grab it and we'd never see it again.
Yeah. We'll see it again, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So Will's a big fan of the M-Wave antennas.
Well, you guys actually caught me because I forgot that I was sharing the screen. I went to go look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely, I mean, so Will, which one of these particular antennas, is it just one of these that you just cut to the?
Yeah, I was talking to him about this the other day, and on the phone. And M-Wave has got some antennas that have rubberized springs in them. So Will's got several antennas on his vehicle, and he goes through the car wash. He doesn't have to take the antennas off.
It must be this one, the EM Flex.
Yeah, the M Flex. Yeah. And so I think I'm going to get one of those because I have one antenna which I can't reach on the roof of my vehicle. So Will swears by these antennas.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to. The next truck that I get, I'm going to do an NMO hole mount. I might have to visit. I haven't spoke to our good friend Marshall. I don't dare want to drill a hole myself into it, so I'm going to see if Marshall will be willing to pop a hole in my new truck.
I had my buddy owns a radio shop here in town. So whenever I get a new vehicle, like every couple of years, I bring it over to him, and he drills the mounts and runs a power cord on a ignition relay for me. I do the rest of the installation myself, but I'm not going to drill into a $60,000 car with side curtain airbags and stuff like that. His shop is insured, so if he pops off an airbag and it costs $3,000, his Allstate's going to pay for that, not my State Farm.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All righty. So let's see here. Yeah, well, yeah, the M-Wave. So yeah, that's those are great antennas. So I'll probably get one because I can reach the two of them, but I can't reach the other one without standing on top of the seat in the back of my car. And for low band, nothing works well except for low band antenna, with one exception. The Austin Spectra works very well on low band. That's about the only antenna out there nowadays that will.
I can tell you, I can testify to that because I've used the Austin Spectra. Let me just pull that up on the website. Get off that other website that I was showing something that we don't sell. But let's see here. Of course, I'm clicking on. It's a tall antenna, 33 inches in length. When I was growing up in Massachusetts, I had an internship at Channel 6 in Providence, Rhode Island, and the electric company was on low band. So of course, GPS scanners weren't around then. This was back in 1999. It was, the GPSs, GPS scanners weren't around at that point. So I would typically scan, all my hometown stuff. The electric company was on the low band. I was rolling into Providence, Rhode Island. And sure enough, I was picking up the electric company on low band on this antenna. This antenna works great, but the thing is, it's super tall. And if you're going to use a mag mount, 5-inch mag mount with this antenna.
Yeah, I used to have one of these, and I had it on the top of my Ford Expedition I don't know, about 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I whacked it on a tree and not only broke the antenna, but I pulled the mount out on the roof. So, yeah, that cost me $200 to get the hole fixed on the roof and basically got back in shape and then bondoed over and then repainted. And then of course I lost a $150 antenna as well. So, yeah, you haven't lived until you've got unless you've got 3/4-inch holes in the roof of your car. I have 3 NMO mounts on my roof. My buddy Will here has got 7. And so Dale's got a whole bunch. So I think between the 3 of us, I think we've got a couple dozen. And then the question is, which is better, the poly spring or the metal spring? The poly spring. And that's what the people that I've talked to say about those.
All right.
And that's all I got to say about that.
All right, so let's check out what next week's broadcast will be all about, so we can plan our weeks accordingly. So we'll be back Wednesday. Next Wednesday is Veterans Day, so we're going to do our broadcast. Very fitting, military air monitoring. So this should be a good show for you if you're interested or looking into possibly monitoring military air. Definitely tune in. It's Wednesday, November the 11th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Scanner Guys YouTube channel. If you haven't liked the page, do it now. Like the page, subscribe to it as well. So let's dive a little bit into the slideshow here. And this slide we did not update, but the Train Aficionado live show will be, the next episode will be on the 7th of December. We haven't came up with a topic as of yet, so definitely join us on the Train Aficionado live show. That's each and every month, the first Monday of the month. And make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to the social media for Train Aficionado, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Also check out the website, trainaficionado.com. And as always, follow, like, and subscribe to Scanner Master, our sponsor, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also shop them online 24/7 at scannermaster.com. And make sure you give the Scanner Guys some love as well. You can follow, like, and subscribe to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at the Scanner Guys. So it's been another fun-filled show. Yes, December, Joe. Brr. I know for the Northeast and the other places.
Well, it's November now. It's cold. It's 84 today. It's like, that's cold for me.
84.
Yeah, 84. It's going to be down into the 70s for Christmas time.
Oh, jeez. Break out the winter coat.
I don't know, man. Yeah. I might actually have to see if I got a furnace in my house. I think I do.
If you turn on the furnace, that's crazy. We got to crank that up to 90. Yeah. You know, get it nice and...
Well, I'll tell you what. I lived in this house for 2 years before I turned the furnace on. I wasn't 100%. If I hadn't gone up into the attic to put my antennas, I may not have ever seen my furnace. So or ever used it. So, well, good night, everybody. It's been a great show. Please make sure you subscribe. That's very important to us.
Yeah, we're getting close to a big number, 1,000 subscribers. So before we go, I just want to show you something that remember during the broadcast when we were using this kept disconnected.
Yes.
Now we went through the answering questions, and it stayed connected through the whole entire time. Go figure.
Of course. So, it's going to dump 3 times while we're using it, and then it's going to stay on as soon as we're not using it.
Yeah, so definitely. I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you made it this far in the rebroadcast, congratulations. As always, we will catch you again next week right here on the Scanner Guys. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media, both here and at Scanner Master. We'll catch you again next week. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
And I'm Rich Carlson.
Have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.